recording? Are we on? Yeah. Right. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to this meeting of the Scrutiny, Climate Change and Environment Committee on Wednesday, the 30th of October 2024. May I remind everyone present, this meeting is being broadcast live via the YouTube, and the recording will be archived for future viewing. If all councillors and officers could ensure that when they speak, they switch their microphones on, and when they finish speaking, they switch their microphones off. This is extremely important for the live stream to ensure the cameras will focus on the individual who is speaking. Right. Now, for the benefit of the public, I will now invite members of the committee to introduce themselves. I'm Councillor Michael Slater. I'm the chair of the committee. And we'll start over here, please.
Yeah,
the microphone on, please.
Sorry, Mr. Chairman. Councillor McHuckabee.
Councillor Adriana Bailey.
Councillor Kim Smith.
Councillor Monica Holton.
Councillor Liz Bullock. Councillor Vicky Gould.
Councillor Adam Clark.
Thank you, councillors. Now then, so just so everyone knows, only members of the committee will be able to vote on any items for discussion at this meeting. Other members of the council who are present or are not members of the committee will be allowed to speak through me, however, they will not be able to vote on any decisions. So that's quite clear, isn't it? So everybody. So first of all, apologies for absence, please.
Thank you, Chair. All the members of the committee are here. Just to note that Councillor George Allen has appointed Councillor Adam Clark as his substitute for this meeting only.
Thank you. Declarations of interest. Do any councillors have any declarations of interest to declare on the items under discussion at this evening's meeting? No? Thank you. Urgent business. I'm not aware of any urgent business for consideration at the meeting. Anybody else? No? Good. Questions from the public. As far as I'm aware, no questions from members of the public have been received in advance of the meeting. Questions from members of the committee. Oh, sorry, beg your pardon. Questions to receive any questions submitted by any member of the committee for answer by the leader, cabinet member or officers of the council. No questions from members of the committee have been received in advance of the meeting. Okay, here we go. Item 6 now. Public minutes of previous meeting held on 30th of September 2024. The committee will have seen these. I propose the approval of the public minutes from the previous meeting. Do I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Gold. Sorry. Thank you, Councillor Gold. Thank you. We will now go to the vote. All those 4 minutes. Thank you. All those 4 minutes. 30th of September. All those 4. Thank you. Okay. Any against? Any abstentions? Right, we're now on to item 7. Call-in of delegated decision 237/24, subscription-based garden waste collection service charge for 2025. I will now invite James Abbott, Corporate and Commercial Manager, to present the summary report. Thank you, James.
Thank you, Chair. So members have been provided with a short covering report ahead of this evening's meeting, just to help facilitate the necessary discussion in relation to the key decision made by the Cabinet Member for Environment and Climate Change, which is set out in Executive Decision Record 237/24, and that's entitled Subscription-Based Garden Waste Collection Service Charges for 2025. And as you may know, Part 3 of the Council's Constitution enables members to call in any key decision made, and following the circulation of the decision record, a request to call this decision in was received via email by the proper officer and has been called in by the 12 members of the council as listed at paragraph 4.6 of the report. Full information on the decision being called in is set out in Appendix 1, with copies of the email requests to call the decision in included in Appendix 2, which also includes the reason for the call-in as cited by those 12 members. Additionally, a summary of the responses in relation to the subscription charge consultation is shown at Appendix 3. So the decision has been validly called in, but only on the 2 grounds listed in paragraphs 4.8.1 and 4.8.2 of the report. And in accordance with the Council's constitution, the decision now needs to be considered by this committee. So the committee has 3 options, and that's provided for within the constitution. But I've also set those out at paragraph 4.10 of the report, just for members' convenience. But the 3 options are as follows. So firstly, to do nothing and allow the decision to stand, or secondly, to refer the decision back to the decision taker with a request to reconsider, but including the reasons in writing for doing so, or finally, to refer the matter directly to the full council for debate. However, it does also go on to state in this line of the constitution that this third option usually be in exceptional circumstances. So, for example, when the decision is contrary to the policy framework or the council's budget. So the recommendation from this report is for this scrutiny committee to consider the decision made by the cabinet member, which is set out in the report and the associated appendices, and then to decide which of these 3 options to take forward. And with that, I'll hand back to you, Chair, to facilitate the discussion.
Thank you, James. So to clarify then, those members of the council who have called a decision and do not serve on the committee are present at this meeting and may speak. However, they will not be able to vote. A list of councillors who has called in the decision has been given to me, but I noticed that Councillor Allen has substituted Councillor Clark to speak for him. Councillors Gould and Bullock are also members of the committee to vote on the matter. May I remind the councillors that the call-in request has been accepted as valid for the following 2 reasons only, which are, just to remind everybody, failure to document the financial costs associated with the administration of managing discounts based on passported benefits, and failure to consider the welfare, health and mental health impacts of such a policy by reducing the ability of residents, especially older residents, to use their gardens and gardening as an outlet for health benefits, by making its costs prohibitive. Therefore, the debate should and can only be focused on the valid reasons for the call-in, only as indicated within the report. So, firstly, I would like to ask any councillors from the call-in group who would like to speak on this matter. So, is anyone indicating they'd like to speak on this matter from the call-in group of councillors? Councillor Sankey, yes, please. Good day, Councillor Sankey. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Chair. I have got a number of issues. However, I will focus on the financial issues, specifically around why we have not called, why we've not, the costs are not included in there. And I'd like to put some background why I believe this has happened, if I may, Chair. Just looking at this position here now, we take it from the budget where we had the budget early in the year where this was not, we had a budget set, clearly defined, we had that went forward with a valid budget, that this wasn't included in there for this financial year. So this was not a cost associated with this financial year, which is why I wanted to pick up that particular part. I've also looked into what monies we've actually had it over the year and whether we need it, whether this cost actually was relevant. And looking forward, the money that's come into this year's budget, Chair, we had over £1 million coming in at the beginning of the year. That was there. During the year, we've had various budget adjustments, but no major ones that needed this money to require.
I beg your pardon, Councillor Sankey. To my knowledge, we passed the corporate plan, we passed the budget. We're asking you to make this associated with the. I presume you were going to talk about the financial costs associated with.
And I believe
benefits, which I agree may not be in, but I mean it's the budget has been passed, hasn't it?
Absolutely, and I'm not discussing that. My argument is, Chair, that this is extra money that is not required, and therefore that this has gone forward in in a way that means that they've not considered what the cost of this is, because this is just extra money that is not needed for this financial year.
Yeah, let me stop you again, because forgive me, it's a little while now since I had a discussion with the proper officer and chief executive. Was that particular item amongst the valid reasons? I don't think it was. But the valid reason was certainly financial costs associated with administrating the benefits, but I don't know as the issue about the overall cost of the thing was in the call-in.
Yeah, I'm talking about the administration cost of this, Chair, and I'm actually putting the context to it is that this money was not necessary. This wasn't required to balance the books this year, and therefore that there was no pressure to produce the extra, explain why they hadn't put the costs in for the administration of it. And my argument is that this has gone through because I consider it to be a poorly developed policy, that because it was just extra money coming in, they've done it in a poor way. If it was actually if it was part of the budget this year and it was needed for this year, they would have actually allowed how much they spent, how much they were going to get in, and how much it was going to cost. But because this year it isn't in the budget, wasn't necessary, they haven't bothered to do that, and that was the context that I was trying to portray in this, Chair. And I'm arguing that the cost of this wasn't included. So you haven't included it because it wasn't really necessary. This is extra money going into the pot. And that's why I was setting the scene on that, Chair. I do apologise if I didn't elaborate properly. Taking that in turn, in terms of the costs, we have not seen any of the costs around what it costs to administrate this particular aspect. What's the cost of administrating the team? What are the implications for when you've got a reduction in this, the 50% reduction? How much is all this going to cost? And therefore, what is the actual net amount we're going to get in there? That wasn't covered at all. And also, what I would refer to as unintended consequences of this. So, things like, what is the cost of people using their grey bins to actually put waste in there, and what is the cost associated with such things as that, and have we actually allocated that cost against the actual benefits of getting the extra income in? Taking that a stage further, that we've actually now we're now actually going down a policy that says we did have a free service, we're now charging for that service. A number of people will be unhappy with that, and they will actually, there is a risk of fly tipping and related things in that area.
Yeah, sorry, Councillor, I'm going to stop you again because no, if had this been one of the valid reasons, we could have discussed this a while ago, couldn't we? But it wasn't. We went through the calling procedure. We spent more than an hour, and
yeah.
I was quizzed on it by the officers quite thoroughly, and we've really got to stick to the financial. The financial costs associated with administrating and managing of discounts. That's what we've got to stick with. And if we're going to go back, you know, into the use of the grey bin and everything else, then forgive me, we could have done this in May last year, May of this year, couldn't we? When the report was first out, it was out in May, wasn't it? No. 24th of May was the initial report and it was there.
I'm talking about the extra cost, the cost of this service.
Yeah.
That have not been included in that, which is where this aspect of it is. That's what I thought was this particular part, that there are costs associated with this service that aren't shown in the report. And that's what I thought that call-in was about. And if it's not about the cost not covered, I do apologise on that one, because that's what I was trying to get. They haven't covered the costs, they haven't considered a number of the costs, and I just think that putting this in when it's it's extra money with no allocated purpose is the wrong thing. Is the wrong thing at this time when at the moment the residents of this authority are being hit with winter fuel allowance. 17,000 people have been hit with that, and all the budget stuff. We've been hit with that.
Councillor, I'm stopping you now because look, other people will debate the budget I'm sure they're doing it now. I tell them, aren't they? They're doing that. This is not
Yeah.
what this committee is about.
No.
Forgive me. We are considering the failure to document the financial costs associated with administrating and managing discounts based on passported benefits, aren't we? That's what we're discussing here.
Yeah.
And forgive me. If I was in charge of the budget, then yes, you could no doubt we could no doubt discuss that. But we're not, are we? We're not. I mean, in the national budget now. We're doing
not
this
talking
one,
about the
aren't we?
budget. I was just stating the context, Chair,
Yeah,
that the costs of this service are not included in there related to those particular aspects. And I was just saying the context that it is the whole thing, that it is because this is just straight extra money that's not necessarily isn't the budget. So that was all I was saying there, Chair. I'll leave it there. If that, because clearly,
Councillor, thank you very much. I think you made your point.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. You can sit down now. Thank you very much. Right. Councillor Locke, yes, please. You want to speak? Thank you. Please come to the microphone. Thank you, Councillor Locke.
Thank you, Chair. Good evening, everyone. I'm here this evening because I'm concerned by the lack of detail in the EDR and associated documentation, largely in relation to the concessionary scheme and vulnerable people in our society. Given Section 93, Clause 3 of the Local Government Act 2003 states that charges should not exceed the costs of provision for discretionary services, I find the lack of clarity in the breakdown of the budgeting in relation to how we're going to support vulnerable people and in terms of the administration costs for the concessionary scheme a concern. I'd like to know what the proportion of money this scheme brings in. We are spending on merely the administration of the discounting scheme for that system. It seems to me that there are a lot of people who have passported benefits within this area who will potentially be able to contact us and ask for one of those discounts. That will have a resource cost associated with it. Linked to that, there is also the cost of trying to raise awareness amongst the vulnerable and everyone else in East Staffordshire as to how this scheme will work. Especially for the more vulnerable members of society, they're going to be very confused by what happens here. And for many of them, they will discover one day that their bin is not emptied and they will contact this council to find out why. And we've got to be ready for the costs, the resource costs associated with supporting those members of society. So that links to that. In concluding, I would like to point out that this decision purportedly supports the corporate objective of developing a new Green Deal for East Staffordshire. I find it difficult to believe that charging for green waste is the new deal that the public were expecting from us. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Councillor Locke. That was very succinct. Thank you. Are there any other members of the calling group in the audience particularly who would like to speak at this time? No? Okay. Leave it on the ground. Thank you. Okay, I will now invite the Cabinet Member for Climate Change and Environment to respond. Thank you, Dennis.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I'll deal with Councillor Sankey's questions. Failure to document the financial costs associated with the administration of managing discounts based on passported benefits. This EDR only considers the financial implications in relation to the relevant decision, and the relevant decision was to set the level of charge for the service and thereby establish the income from the introduction of the subscription charge. The impact of managing the rebate scheme has been considered in terms of the relevant administration costs. The members are aware, or should be aware, the scope of the charging regime was considered in the May report, and a sum of £60,000 was provided to cover costs relating to administering the scheme. These costs have been reviewed in the light of the rebate proposals on the level, and they are, I have to inform you, still relevant. However, the overall administration costs of the scheme will depend on the level of uptake. Now, if the level of uptake is less than we anticipated, there will be a further cost. But if the level of uptake is greater than we anticipated, there'll be more income. So we have thought about it. We've put a sum in. We think it will cover it. We're certain it will cover it. So I can't see how we're failing to document the costs associated with it. Now I come to Councillor Locke's. Some of it's not relevant. The new Green Deal and charging for waste. Failure to consider the welfare, health and mental impact reducing the ability of residents, especially older residents, to use their gardens and gardening as an outlet to health benefits by making it cost prohibitive. The current waste collection service already has an equality and health impact assessment, which has protected characteristics and has assisted collection to help those with mobility problems. Subscription does not affect this service in any way other than via the annual charge and a short winter break, which is 5 weeks. The Cabinet in May 2020 this year, an equality and health impact assessment decided an equality and health impact assessment will be produced should approval be granted for a subscription-based service and after terms and conditions have been finalised. This EDR marked the end of that process and then therefore enabled the terms and conditions to be finalised. They have now been finalised and the review has subsequently been completed. The revised Equalities Health Impact Assessment considers those with lower household income and recognises that concessions are to be made available. It also reviews the impact on protected characteristics and includes the continuation of assisted collection. The revised service doesn't reduce the ability of residents to use their gardens and actively promotes home composting. Older residents on low income and in receipt of identified benefits are also eligible for the concessionary rate. Now, the final thing that Councillor Locke said was that charging for green waste doesn't seem to fit in with a new Green Deal. I admit it does look at first glance to be counterproductive, counterintuitive, but the money that we will raise from this decision will help to do many of the things that we are planning to do for the new Green Deal. Investing solar panels on council vehicles, tackling environment crime, that's already been done. Mobile fly tipping, vehicles already been done. Supporting involuntary and community groups, providing warm spaces, I could go on and on. So I think I've answered all of those, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Roger, thank you. Where are we next then? So I will now invite committee members to debate the matter and we'll then invite the Cabinet member to respond again. So anyone from the committee would like to add to this debate? Yes, Councillor.
The responses to that, Councillor Fletcher. I think it's interesting that on the one hand this policy is being introduced because we can't afford to offer the discretionary rates at the discretionary collection of garden waste charge, but at least on the other hand it is also being used as a magic money tree to fund unending benefits through the new Green Deal. My opposition to the introduction of a yearly garden waste charge is well known. However, tonight I've supported the call-in not just because of its added cost to residents, but because in its current form it is not considered and fundamentally disregards the welfare and well-being of our community. This policy would turn what has been a free, beneficial service into a costly barrier for many, especially older residents, those living on fixed incomes and those not entitled to a discretionary discount through existing passported benefits. This is putting their health and mental well-being at risk. For many, gardening isn't just a pastime, it's a lifeline. Research consistently shows that gardening improves physical fitness, reduces stress, and strengthens mental health. In fact, for our older residents, it's often a vital daily outlet, a source of independence, and a powerful way to stay active. Imposing a yearly fee threatens to make gardening a cost-prohibitive activity for residents, especially as the cost of living continues to rise. For residents, especially those who may already face challenges with mobility or isolation, gardening is a way to stay active and socially connected. By introducing we risk isolating people from the health benefits of gardening and distracting them from a source of joy and relaxation, not because the policy would impact the collection service or any of the existing assisted measures, but because it puts another financial burden on those who are the poorest in society. Let's not make our community pay to protect their well-being. Otherwise, we risk creating a situation where people will avoid gardening altogether simply because disposing of green waste has become cost prohibitive. The introduction of this policy has failed to take into account. In a time when we should be encouraging physical activity and social prescribing and mental well-being, this policy does the exact opposite. Equally troubling is the policy's failure to fully address the costs and administrative burden of this policy in full, as seen in the management of discounts for residents on passported benefits. Collection and storage of over 200 the cost of informing residents. It's unclear how much it will cost to oversee these aspects of the schemes, and these costs appear to have been left out of the financial projections entirely within this EDR. The administrative complexities of managing these discounts creates additional burdens, and without clear documentation of these costs, we can't be sure that any of the supposed financial benefits from this policy will outweigh the costs of managing it. We're here at a scrutiny committee tonight, and it is our responsibility to ensure that policies do not proceed if they are not fully considered, transparent and thorough. From the financial aspect, the impact on our communities and the ability or not of this policy to generate the required revenues to support the Council's Green New Deal. In this case, the policy not only lacks the financial clarity, but more importantly, lacks compassion and understanding for the needs of our community. Tonight, I'm calling on every Cabinet member here requesting that the decision taker reconsiders this policy in its entirety, including the reasons in writing for doing so. This change will do more harm than good, and until we can be ensured that it supports the welfare and needs of all of our residents, it should not proceed.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. Thank you. Anybody else like to speak on this matter? Anyone got anything to say? Right, okay. Thank you. So, at this point, Councillor Fletcher, if you want to respond to what you've just heard.
Yeah, I can. A lot of what Councillor Clark said was not relevant. The decision was made way back in May, and your group had the chance then to call the decision in. They chose not to do so. This isn't about charging, it's about the level of charging, and that's the only thing that we're considering tonight. As far as affecting people's ability to garden, I don't see how not having a brown bin affects somebody's ability to garden. I mean, presumably, if they can garden at the moment, they'll still be able to garden. And if they want to compost their green waste, instead of putting in the brown bin, if they can garden, then they're able to compost. If they're not able to do the garden at the moment, then presumably someone is there to help them. And that person will still be able to help them compost. I don't see how this decision has anything to do with people's welfare. This council does more than enough to point people in the direction of healthy living via working on community projects. Our recent successes in Bloom show the number of volunteers that take part in that sort of activity, and that includes elderly people, it includes disabled people, it includes people in wheelchairs, it can be people with mental disorders and so on. So that's my answer.
Thank you, Councillor Fletcher. So, members of the committee then, is there anybody else at all that wants to say anything? No? Rightio then. So I think we've heard the arguments for these valid motions and against them from Councillor Fletcher. So I will now proceed to the vote. There are three possible votes we could do, but the first one is to do nothing and allow the decision to stand. So I'm going to propose that one at the moment. Do I have a seconder, please? This is to allow the EDR as amended to stand. Okay, so do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Smith. So, all those in favour of that decision to allow nothing, to do nothing and allow the decision to stand? All those in favour? Okay, thank you. All those against? Any abstentions? No abstentions? Thank you. So I think that's confirmed. The vote is carried. Thank you very much, Councillor Fletcher and members of the audience. We're going to add one final thing I was going to add, principally for the benefit of members of the public who are not in the room, and all those in the room, of course. All the other decisions to do with the brown bin subscription charge have been debated in the group meetings, in the council chamber. Our committee has had Councillor Fletcher here before to interrogate him on this, and I seem to remember the petition. We debated that, and which came to the council chamber. So what I want the public to know is we have considered this on other occasions, and I hope we've done enough detail for it. So I will stop there and move on to item 8. Before I do that, if anyone in the audience or in the room wishes to leave at this point, you're welcome to do so. You're welcome to stay as well if you wish, but you're welcome to leave if you want to leave. Everyone seems to be staying. Thank you very much. Thank you. So, item 8, a list of public executive decisions have been circulated with the agenda. The committee member will have seen these, enclosure free. Does anyone have any questions on these? Just to remind you then, there was where are we? 2 decisions. So the subscription-based garden waste collection service charge for 2025, which I think we've already done, but you're welcome to mention it now, members of the committee, and approval of sustainable travel plans. So does anyone have any comments to make on those 2 EDRs? Yes, Councillor Clark.
Thank you very much, Chair. I have a question in regards to 237.24, the subscription-based garden waste collection service. In the survey that took part in the consultation, the public overwhelmingly rejected the idea of the introduction of the scheme. Could we ask the Cabinet member responsible why they decided to go ahead with the introduction despite that? Thank you.
I think on the consultation, of the over 4,000 people that responded, 2,000. I thought that the balance between charging and not charging was very even. So I don't know how you describe it as overwhelming.
Thank you, Councillor Clark. This, of course, was one of the matters we did discuss at the last meeting. I appreciate you weren't here at the last meeting, but this was the issue we did discuss at the meeting on the 30th of September. So we have discussed this already. And by chance, Councillor Fletcher was also here at the time as well. So we have discussed this already. But if you want to have one more question, you'll have one more question now, please.
Thank you, Chair. Apologies for that. Sorry, Councillor Fletcher. I was just talking in regards to the question where it says to pay for this, we believe it is fairer to charge only those households who wish to use the service. Do you agree? And 69% said no, they do not agree. I don't think 69%, 31% is an overwhelming or a split decision. But I appreciate that you've discussed this, and I won't ask any further questions.
Forgive me, I'm sure Councillor Fletcher will correct me if I'm wrong. The consultation was considered in detail. The consultation, it was a consultation. It wasn't a mandatory instruction. It wasn't a plebiscite on the actual charge, and we did debate that quite thoroughly. So unless Councillor Fletcher wants to add anything else at this point, no. Well, it was 30%. Sorry, what? Councillor Clark was asking about that percentage.
I'm trying to. I just can't remember the figures. 31% of the 2,000 did what? 60.
Please, microphone.
69%. Sorry, 69% of the people that responded said no. So that's the people that responded. So what percentage of the people that didn't respond would have said no? I mean, 69% of 2,000 is a very small percentage of the actual electorate.
Thank you, Councillor Fletcher. Right, thank you. So, right, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I think we've discussed the subscription charge quite a lot lately, and we've done it again. Thank you. So, if no one's got any other comments about the current EDRs, then item 9 is date of next meeting to be confirmed. I take it we haven't got a fixed date, have we? Thank you.
Yeah, no, just to say that the Democratic Services team are in the process of ascertaining that availability, so please do feel free to advise on your availability, and we'll get that confirmed as soon as possible. We're looking for a meeting towards the end of November, early part of December, to sort of intersect now and the scheduled January meeting.
Yes, thank you, James. I appreciate that with a lot of meetings lately, and getting time and space and everyone's availability has been perhaps difficult, but I'm grateful that everyone is here tonight. We have 2 items in private to consider, so I will now move that, in accordance with Section 100 brackets A brackets 4 of the Local Government Act 1972, the press and public be excluded from the remainder of the meeting, as it is likely, in view of the nature of the business to be constructed and transacted, or the nature of proceedings, that there would be disclosed exempt information as defined in paragraphs Part I of Schedule 12A of the Act, indicated in brackets before each item number on the agenda. Crikey. Do I have a seconder for this, please? A seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor Bailey. We will vote all those in favour. Thank you very much. Is that everybody? Thank you. Any against? Thank you. No, lovely. I'll wait for a moment for members to leave and the recording to be switched off. Thank you very much. Thank you, gentlemen, for your time. Thank you. Switched off. Oh, yeah, not switched off. Okay.